There's a prison in Russia where inmates never see sunlight, where the walls are painted black to disorient prisoners. Guards wear soft shoes to muffle their steps. After Russia ended executions in 1996, authorities built Black Dolphin to lock away its most dangerous criminals. Permanent punishment without execution. Black Dolphin holds the country's most dangerous killers, and every detail was designed to break the human spirit. Imagine your worst nightmare, then paint every wall black. Escapes are unheard of. Once inside, most inmates spend the rest of their lives behind these walls. This isn't just a maximum security facility. It's a psychological torture chamber masquerading as justice. The prison within a prison design traces back over a century, each era adding new layers of control. But this fortress of despair wasn't always what it is today. In the mid-18th century, a frontier detention camp emerged in Orenburg. Originally open air and light-filled, the modest facility served as a holding pen for common criminals and military deserters. Guards walked freely among prisoners. Natural light streamed through barred windows. The death penalty remained legal, offering inmates a swift end to their suffering. The Tsarist regime used the facility primarily for political prisoners and exiles heading to Siberia. Revolutionary thinkers and dissidents passed through its gates on their way to frozen labor camps. The prison's location in Orenburg made it a crucial stopping point for prisoner transport. Authorities could process hundreds of inmates before sending them deeper into the empire's vast wilderness. Stone walls eventually replaced wooden barriers. Iron gates sealed off sections that previously remained open. Lenin's Bolsheviks seized control in 1917 and immediately began reshaping the prison system. The Soviet regime viewed punishment differently than their Tsarist predecessors. They didn't just want to contain enemies of the state, they wanted to remake them. The Orenburg facility became a testing ground for new rehabilitation methods. Authorities installed workshops for forced labor and educational facilities for political indoctrination. The prison's population swelled with kulaks, intellectuals, and anyone who opposed collective farming. Stalin's purges brought architectural changes that would define the facility for decades. The layout shifted from open dormitories to individual cells. Authorities eliminated most windows to prevent communication between prisoners and painted the interior walls dark colors to reduce visibility. Guard towers sprouted from the corners, each equipped with searchlights. The facility became a laboratory for breaking human resistance. Former inmates who survived described a place where death seemed preferable to continued existence. The Soviet system transformed the prison into something more sinister than simple containment. They developed techniques for psychological control that went far beyond physical restraints. Guards received training in behavioral manipulation. They learned to use isolation, unpredictability, and sensory deprivation as weapons. World War II brought new challenges as the prison housed German POWs, Soviet deserters, and suspected collaborators. Authorities segregated different prisoner categories to prevent communication and organization. The post-Stalin era brought modest reforms to most Soviet prisons, but the Orenburg facility remained largely unchanged. Authorities recognized its effectiveness at containing the most dangerous prisoners. They began transferring serial killers and mass murderers from other facilities. The prison's reputation spread throughout the Soviet correction system. Guards called it the place where hope went to die. The 1990s renovation marked the birth of modern Black Dolphin. Russian authorities invested millions of rubles in creating the ultimate maximum security facility. They installed state-of-the-art surveillance systems. Motion sensors covered every corridor. Cameras monitored every cell. The renovation team painted the walls matte black to create disorientation and prevent inmates from marking time by shadows. They designed exercise yards as concrete boxes with no view of the outside world. Engineers rebuilt the cell blocks with psychological warfare in mind. They eliminated natural light sources completely. Artificial lighting remained constant, destroying prisoners' circadian rhythms. Cell doors received multiple locks operated by different guards. No single person could release an inmate without authorization from multiple sources. The renovation created a prison within a prison, where each layer of security added another dimension of psychological pressure. This historical evolution created something unprecedented in modern corrections. Black Dolphin became a facility designed not just to contain dangerous criminals, but to systematically dismantle their humanity. Each regime added layers of control that would culminate in the most psychologically destructive prison environment ever constructed. But the prison's builders understood that true hopelessness required more than just walls and bars. They chose the most desolate location they could find. Black Dolphin sits in a stretch of the Orenburg region so remote that even the guards call it the end of the world. The nearest major city lies 4 hours away by car. The facility stands isolated in a landscape that offers no shelter, no resources, and no hope for anyone desperate enough to attempt escape. Russian authorities deliberately selected this location to create an additional layer of psychological torture. Site surveys conducted in the 1990s examined dozens of potential locations across the country. Officials rejected sites near populated areas or transportation hubs. They wanted a place where the very geography would serve as a prison guard. The Orenburg region met every requirement for maximum isolation. Roads leading to the facility stretch for miles without encountering a single settlement. Environmental challenges make escape attempts virtually impossible. The vast steppes extend in every direction without natural landmarks or shelter. Winter temperatures plummet to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, bringing blizzards that can last for days and create whiteout conditions. Snow accumulates to depths of several feet, making travel on foot nearly impossible. Summer heat reaches levels that cause dehydration within hours, turning the surrounding steppes into a furnace. The region receives minimal rainfall, leaving few water sources for potential escapees. Wildlife includes wolves and wild dogs that hunt in packs during harsh seasons. The isolation affects everyone who works at the facility. Guards and staff live in a closed ecosystem of despair that extends beyond the prison walls. The nearest town consists of fewer than 3,000 residents. Most businesses close early due to lack of customers. Entertainment options remain limited to a single movie theater and 2 restaurants. Staff members often develop psychological problems from prolonged exposure to the environment. Staff turnover is unusually high due to isolation. Many employees request transfers after short assignments. Running a prison in such a remote location creates logistical nightmares that add to inmates' sense of abandonment. Supply convoys arrive weekly with food, medical supplies, and equipment. Mechanical breakdowns can leave the facility without essential resources for days. Communication systems depend on satellite links that weather conditions often disrupt. Emergency medical evacuation requires helicopter transport when road conditions become impassable. The remoteness means that prisoners receive minimal outside contact from legal representatives or family members. Administrative costs are significantly higher than typical prisons. Equipment repairs require specialists who must travel hundreds of miles to reach the site. Staff housing and amenities cost substantially more than the national average due to transportation expenses. The facility operates its own power generation system because connecting to the regional electrical grid proved too expensive. These factors contribute to the prisoners' psychological state by demonstrating how thoroughly they have been abandoned by society. The psychological impact of knowing that escape means facing hundreds of miles of empty wilderness cannot be overstated. Prisoners understand that clearing the prison walls represents only the first obstacle in an impossible journey. The nearest international border lies over 800 miles away. No public transportation serves the region. Stolen vehicles would run out of fuel long before reaching populated areas. The climate alone would kill most escapees within days. This knowledge creates a form of mental imprisonment that extends far beyond physical barriers. Geographic isolation feeds directly into the prison's overall design philosophy. Authorities recognize that location could serve as a psychological weapon more effective than any physical restraint. The endless horizon visible from exercise yards reinforces the futility of escape attempts. The absence of aircraft overhead or vehicle traffic reminds inmates of their complete separation from the outside world. Weather patterns become another form of psychological pressure as prisoners experience the full force of nature's extremes. The remote location serves as the first ring of an elaborate psychological prison. Each mile of empty terrain adds another layer of mental confinement. The landscape itself becomes a co-conspirator in their psychological destruction. But this desolate setting was merely the foundation for something far more sinister that human ingenuity would construct within it. The building itself becomes a weapon against the human mind. Black Dolphin operates on a prison within a prison concept that creates multiple layers of psychological torture disguised as security measures. The facility consists of 3 separate security zones that prisoners must navigate during their limited movement periods. The outer perimeter features standard prison walls and guard towers. The middle zone contains administrative offices and common areas that inmates never see. The inner core houses the cell blocks where prisoners spend their lives. This layered design ensures that inmates remain disoriented about the facility's actual layout. They cannot form mental maps of their environment. Every architectural element serves a dual function. The obvious purpose involves containing dangerous criminals. The hidden purpose involves systematically destroying their mental capacity through environmental manipulation. Black-painted walls throughout the facility give the prison its unofficial name and create profound psychological effects over time. The matte black surface absorbs light and creates an oppressive atmosphere. Psychologists understand that prolonged exposure to dark colors increases depression and anxiety. The paint choice eliminates shadows that prisoners might use to track time passage. The uniform black surface provides no visual reference points for spatial orientation. Inmates describe feeling like they exist in a void where walls seem to press inward. Lighting systems operate on irregular schedules to prevent inmates from developing routine expectations. Artificial illumination increases and decreases without warning throughout the facility. The constant changes destroy circadian rhythms within weeks. Prisoners lose track of time as days blend into an endless fluorescent nightmare. These environmental fluctuations keep inmates in a constant state of physical discomfort while preventing psychological adaptation to living conditions. The windowless cells measure exactly 50 square feet and contain no natural light sources. Inmates spend 23 hours daily in these concrete boxes under artificial lighting that never dims. Each cell contains a steel bed frame welded to the floor. A small toilet sits in one corner without privacy screening. The walls offer no decoration or variation to provide visual stimulation. Temperature fluctuations occur randomly throughout the day without warning or explanation. Corridor design prevents inmates from ever seeing more than a few feet ahead during movement periods. The hallways feature sharp turns every 30 feet. Authorities installed these angles to prevent prisoners from viewing long distances. The layout eliminates sight lines that might provide orientation or hope. Prisoners cannot see their destination during transport. They cannot anticipate what lies around the next corner. This design creates constant anxiety about immediate surroundings. Cell doors require multiple guards to operate the locking mechanisms. The extended procedures create mechanical noise that becomes psychological triggers for increased stress levels. Prisoners never know when someone might be watching through the small viewing slots. The multiple locks mean extended periods of waiting during opening procedures. These sounds and delays become part of the psychological pressure that accumulates over time. Exercise yards represent the most claustrophobic aspect of the facility's design. These concrete boxes measure barely larger than the cells themselves. High walls prevent inmates from seeing beyond the immediate enclosure. The yards contain no equipment or furniture. A small patch of sky visible overhead provides the only natural light prisoners receive. The concrete surfaces reflect sound and create an echo chamber effect. One former guard described watching inmates pace these spaces like caged animals, their voices bouncing off walls in distorted echoes that seem to mock their isolation. Every architectural choice works together to create comprehensive sensory deprivation and psychological breakdown. Colors, dimensions, lighting, and spatial relationships combine to assault the senses. Prisoners cannot escape the environment's psychological pressure even during sleep. The architecture ensures that every moment of existence involves some form of mental stress. But the building's physical horrors represent only the beginning of Black Dolphin's assault on human consciousness. The most terrifying thing about Black Dolphin isn't what you can see, it's what you can't. The prison operates through psychological control methods that penetrate deeper than any physical barrier. Guards receive specialized training in behavioral manipulation techniques developed by psychologists familiar with Soviet-era interrogation methods. These methods create invisible prisons within prisoners' minds that prove more effective than steel bars or concrete walls. Authorities deploy subtle psychological techniques that exceed the effectiveness of traditional physical restraints. The control system operates through uncertainty, unpredictability, and constant psychological pressure. Guards learn to exploit basic human psychological vulnerabilities. They understand that the mind breaks more easily than the body. Physical torture leaves evidence and creates martyrs. Psychological torture destroys the victim's ability to resist while leaving no visible marks. Guards wear soft-soled shoes throughout the facility to muffle their footsteps completely. This creates an atmosphere where inmates never know when someone approaches their cell. The silence becomes a weapon that maintains constant tension. Prisoners develop hypervigilance trying to detect approaching guards. They strain to hear sounds that might indicate human presence. The effort exhausts their mental resources and increases anxiety levels. Guards can observe inmates for extended periods without detection. This invisible surveillance creates paranoia that grows stronger over time. The complete isolation protocol ensures inmates have no contact with the outside world beyond essential legal communications. Phone calls are prohibited except in extreme emergencies. Letters undergo extensive censorship that removes most personal content. Visitors must receive approval through a process that takes months to complete. Family members rarely make the journey to this remote location. Inmates effectively disappear from society while remaining technically alive. The isolation extends to limited interaction with other prisoners. Inmates eat meals alone in their cells. They exercise alone in individual yards. Common areas remain off-limits to all prisoners. Administrative procedures occur at random intervals to maintain psychological pressure. Inmates receive surprise searches that destroy personal belongings. Guards conduct cell inspections at any hour of day or night. Prisoners face sudden transfers to different sections without explanation. These disruptions prevent inmates from establishing any sense of stability or control over their environment. The random nature makes resistance impossible because there are no patterns to anticipate or counter. The prison weaponizes uncertainty more effectively than any physical punishment. Inmates never know what to expect, or when conditions might change. Cell assignments shift without warning. Guard rotations follow no predictable pattern. Prisoners cannot identify which guards might show occasional mercy or understanding. The unpredictability extends to basic necessities like food quality and medical care. Some days bring adequate meals, while others provide barely edible rations. This inconsistency prevents psychological adaptation to prison conditions. Black Dolphin's true purpose ensures that even theoretical escape would result in psychological breakdown rather than freedom. The facility systematically destroys inmates' capacity for independent thought and action. Prisoners lose basic social skills through prolonged isolation. They develop inability to make decisions or plan for the future. The psychological damage becomes permanent after extended exposure to these conditions. Released inmates would lack the mental resources necessary to function in normal society. The invisible chains prove more effective than any physical restraint because they operate inside the human mind. Guards control prisoners through psychological manipulation rather than brute force. The methods leave no evidence of abuse while achieving complete behavioral compliance. Inmates become complicit in their own destruction through learned helplessness and psychological dependency. This systematic destruction of human agency represents something far more sinister than simple imprisonment. Black Dolphin transforms human beings into hollow shells through calculated psychological warfare. Russia abolished capital punishment in 1996, but authorities designed this facility to achieve something more devastating than death. The prison demonstrates humanity's capacity for systematic psychological destruction while maintaining legal compliance with international standards. This facility reveals what happens when societies choose revenge over rehabilitation. The psychological techniques perfected at Black Dolphin represent the darkest applications of human behavioral science. Every element operates within legal boundaries while achieving complete moral horror. What do you think drives a society to build a prison like this? Let me know in the comments. If you found this exploration chilling, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into prisons and criminal psychology. See you next time on Crime Republic.